Welcome back to our Sky Confections YouTube channel. I am here today to show you the behind the scenes on how I made the wafer paper butterfly. This was done using a cookie cutter, a square piece of wafer paper, and I just traced that out, cut it out, and then I doubled it because I wanted to have two sides to my butterfly. The reason I chose to use wafer paper is because it dries quickly. This was a rush order and I did not have time to use gum paste or fondant and allow it to dry. So this was a quick idea to paint and have it dry, and then I could add it to the cake and they could remove it before serving. Now you will see me setting up some of my favorite colors. I have the lilac and mermaid purple highlighter dust from Confection Perfection. I love their line, and I chose to mix that with the Sugar Art Master Elite Color Turquoise Water. You do have to activate that with something liquid, so I use my Everclear and then at the end you'll see me add in some diamond dust from the Sugar Art. I also have a little bit of piping gel and a paintbrush. I'm now painting just a thin coat of piping gel onto one side of the butterfly and then putting a floral wire in between and attaching the second wafer paper butterfly cutout. You just want to gently push those together and make sure that all of your edges are close, but you don't want to oversaturate it so that it starts to dissolve in your hand. Now I am taking some of the mermaid purple highlight dust and adding just a little vodka and going around the edges because I wanted the darker on the outside and then to fade it into lighter toward the center. You will also see me add in some of the lilac as I go along. The inspiration for this particular butterfly is the suicide awareness and prevention butterfly with the ribbons that are teal and purple. So I wanted those colors to fade together, or blend I should say, very nicely. So I took my time and I go over it a couple of times, and then I want to repeat the same steps on the back of the butterfly. So I'm just going to do the same thing with the turquoise water. That one is very concentrated, so if you've ever used any of the Master Elite's line, you only need a little. I actually probably use too much to start off, but as I go it blends together nicely, overlays really beautifully with that purple luster or highlighter dust, so it gives it a very good sheen, and it just looks really nice in the light. Now I will turn over the wafer paper butterfly and actually repeat those same steps, going through making sure that my edges are darker and filling in with the other colors, pulling them toward the center so that they blend nicely right in the middle of that butterfly. At this point, I am really done, but I wanted to add some additional details. And remember I said I was using an inspiration butterfly, which is watercolor, and it had a darker faded edge to it. So I'm going to go in and use some black Watercolor food gel. And this is a size 0 paintbrush from Sweet Stamp, something I purchased from them for those really tiny details. And I'm just taking just a tiny bit, and going around the edge of the wafer paper butterfly to give it an outline. Now this butterfly is starting to have some personality. I take the additional Watercolor black food gel and start to go in and make sure to, pull in my wings. I'm now working the middle section of the butterfly, just kind of adding some detail to the body. And as I work my way around, I'm careful to pull the color toward the center, so it is not just a straight line. I want to blend it as best as I can. This actually doesn't take that long, but it's one of those things that, depending on how much detail you want to add, you can make it longer, which is what I did here. So if you were making a bunch of these, obviously you wouldn't spend as much time on every single butterfly. You would obviously make the ones that are going to be seen in the front have more detail, but just paint and have your watercolor on the others. This was my only butterfly for this particular cake, so I put a lot of time and detail into it. If you look carefully, you will see on the top right wing there is a semicolon, and this is my ode to suicide prevention and awareness and having second chances. Okay, it's a pause. It's not an end. It's not final. So my hope is that if you're watching this video, that you are inspired to keep going. It's also my hope that you will try something different. So if you've never worked with wafer paper, grab some. It's very thin, it's very delicate, but if you work it with just the right amount of moisture, you can do a lot with it. Even this butterfly, I could have applied just a little bit more moisture toward the center wings. I could also use my fingers and allow the heat from my fingers to soften the paper, and I could have made the wings bend while they were wet and allowed them to dry in a different shape. I just chose to keep it as open as possible because it was going to the front of my cake. As I continued to paint with additional luster and color, I actually painted over some of my black, the little spots. And as we know, butterflies are typically symmetrical, but I have the semicolon on the right. And as I was painting, I realized, I lost my dye on the left. So I go back in with the Watercolor and just reapply those so that it is even, and I like how it looks. And then I add just a little bit more depth and definition because I wanted the teal bluish side to look different from the purple. I now will go in with my fave, some diamond dust from Master Elites, just to give it a little sparkle. And now that concludes our wafer paper butterfly tutorial painted with watercolor. I loved how this turned out. It was very light, it was easy to use, and it dried quickly. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to see more of our edible art, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.